JANZZ.technology, the podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. I'm Flamarich, and today we're diving into the rich, fascinating world of language. But not just any language. We are exploring the fine line between two of the world's most spoken tongues, Portuguese and Spanish, and even more, how these languages interact in the context of jobs, skills, and big data. To help us understand this linguistic story, we are joined by two of our very own ontologists, Sara Noriega, our Spanish language curator, and Susana Pereira, our expert for Portuguese. Welcome to you both.
Hola. Hola.
Sara and Susana, the other day I happened to overhear your fascinating conversation about the origins of your mother tongues, and I thought it would be perfect to bring that discussion here to the podcast. Susana, you're from Aveiro, right?
Exactly, Aveiro.
And Sara, you're from Oviedo, Asturias, not far from Susana's place.
Right. I was saying to Susana that I find her way of speaking harder to understand than Brazilian Portuguese.
Then I said that as a Catalan and Spanish speaker, I understand Susana's Portuguese quite well, even though I'm from the other side of the peninsula. Susana, can you explain that to our listeners?
Of course. So, Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, Spanish, and Catalan all look and sound alike because they are siblings in the Roman language family. Each one began as the vulgar Latin spoken in the Roman province of Hispania, the Roman name for the Iberian Peninsula, and only later drift apart when the peninsula broke into separate kingdoms. Portuguese and Catalan are more phonologically conservative. They kept features such as the initial F sound from Latin words, while Castilian often shift that F to a silent H sound. For instance, filha, the Latin root for daughter, in Portuguese will be filha, in Catalan, fila, and in Spanish, hija.
Right.
Portuguese speakers usually comprehend spoken Spanish easier than Spanish speakers understand spoken Portuguese. That's because pronunciation, the syntax, and phonology are different, especially Portuguese nasal vowels and fricative sounds. That can make spoken comprehension more challenging.
Exactly. Brazilian Portuguese keeps most vowels full and clear, which makes it easy for Spanish speakers to understand them. Whereas European Portuguese, or in Portugal mostly in the south, the vowels are closed, or they can be wiped out. In Spanish, vowels are generally pronounced fully and clearly too. So, Brazilian Portuguese vowels feel more familiar to us.
That's really interesting. So, despite Portuguese and Spanish being very close linguistically, these phonetic nuances can make communication more challenging, especially across different varieties of Portuguese. Now, moving beyond just language, how do these similarities and differences play out in the real world, in JANZZ's specialized domain, the labor market?
Well, even though Spanish and Portuguese share almost 90%, yes, 90%, of their vocabulary, the same word can hide very different meanings. A very famous example of false friends is the Spanish word embarazada, that means pregnant. In Portuguese, embaraçada means embarrassed and not pregnant. This is something that always makes someone laugh.
Definitely. And now that you mentioned it, in German, prägnant, I hope I pronounce it well, means concise, clear, and to the point. Whereas in English, pregnant most commonly means expecting a baby. Even if the spelling is similar or almost the same, like in this case, the meaning is completely different.
And now take polvo. In Spanish, it's dust. But in Portuguese, it's octopus. We don't want to confuse the Portuguese term experiencia en limpieza de polvo with the wrong meaning in Spanish. A Spanish recruiter or trained assistant might understand someone vacuuming offices instead of cleaning octopus at the fish market.
That would be a terrible confusion.
That's the kind of semantic gap that trips up AI and human alike. And since so much data in Latin America is in Spanish or Portuguese, having the linguistic expertise to navigate these nuances is essential.
What are some of the most confusing or critical false friends you've seen in your work between Spanish and Portuguese?
Well, one example I always come across is oficio. In Spanish, it usually means a kind of low-skill manual job or trade. But in Portuguese, oficio can also be a formal letter of communication.
Yes, and in Spanish, oficina usually means an office, a place where administrative or professional work happens. But in Portuguese, oficina is more commonly used to refer to a mechanical workshop, a place where cars or machinery are repaired.
That's a huge difference. In a job ad or CV, someone might write they've worked in an oficina, and it could cause a lot of confusion, right?
That's it. Just in the other day, I parsed a CV for a mechanic, and it said he had worked in an oficina. A normal system may just translate that as office in English, which is obviously not the case. So the parser could end up classifying someone as having experience in an office environment when in reality, this person worked in a mechanical workshop.
And the same within Spanish context. If the system misinterprets this, it could incorrectly match someone with administrative skills like a secretary that works in a Spanish oficina, office, with a mechanic job. Someone that works in a Portuguese oficina, mechanical workshop.
That sounds like a recipe for mismatch.
And that's the problem. If the system relies purely on literal translations, it risks completely missing the contextual difference between Spanish and Portuguese, especially when it comes to job experience. This could lead to jobs being mismatched or overlooked entirely.
What does it mean to be an ontologist?
We are classifying the terminology in the different branches and family groups to provide a better match. It's much more than just building taxonomies. It's a living system that collects data from different sources and integrates it into a bigger system, implementing relations between them. These relations will contribute to the matching factor and mapping of how different concepts fit together.
Yes, we have to make sure that each term's translation in all different languages is contextually accurate. And sometimes, as we have been seeing, this is very difficult due to the false friends, synonyms, difference in dialects, and also because the same words in different languages assume different meanings. In our ontology, we work not only with terminology related to occupations and skills, but also with the classification of different types of entities, such as authorizations, contract types, industries, languages, and levels of education, just to mention a few. For instance, a PhD is not the same as a bachelor's degree or a primary school degree. To make things even more complex, each country or region has its education system, which adds significant challenges when categorizing and translating these terms. Ultimately, we establish relationships among all these entities to create a robust network that directly enhances the accuracy and quality of the matches.
That sounds complicated, Sarah. Could we see it in a practical example?
Sure. Let's settle the example of an English teacher in a secondary school. This role typically requires skills such as English teaching, knowledge of pedagogy, specifically tailored to teenagers, and, in many cases, familiarity with English literature. Now, compare that to an English professor at the university, who needs a different skill set. While both share the ability of English teaching, a professor is expected to have a deeper linguistic mastery of the language, often with a specific focus such as medical English, literary English, or poetry. The education needed for each is also very different. Understanding these distinctions is essential to assure precise and meaningful matching.
So when we tackle the occupation high school English teacher, we can say that it is specialized in teach English at that school, which may look silly, but it's a very powerful relation that assures that this obvious skill, teach English at high school, is covered. But most of the time, recruiters don't use such obvious skills in the job ads, and therefore, because they are not explicit there, they can't be mapped nor used for matching, which is ultimately the goal.
I see. But with our technology, this doesn't happen, right?
Right. Once the relation is established, this obvious skill does not have to be implicitly there. Our technology already takes it into account, and therefore the matching is happening.
That is an excellent improvement feature. So here's where JANZZon, our ontology, comes in. Can you explain how it works and why is it so valuable?
JANZZon, it's not like a glossary or a dictionary. It's a semantic framework. Think of it as a curated multilingual ontology, a knowledge graph that connects occupations, skills, qualifications, sectors, and much more. Our team has been building it for years, making sure that when a skill like gestión de proyectos appears in Spanish, its Portuguese equivalent, gestão de projetos, truly matches in meaning and context.
Exactly. And that might sound simple, but it's not. Take, for example, bus driver. In Portugal, you'd say motorista de autocarro, while in Brazil is motorista de ônibus. In Spanish, the variation is even greater.
True, Susana. In Spain, we say autobús, but in the Canary Islands, Puerto Rico, and Cuba, it's guagua. In Chile, it's micro, and in Argentina, it's colectivo.
And fun fact, in Chile, guagua actually means baby.
No way. Really? Okay, that now it's really confusing.
Exactly. And that's just one job title example. Imagine the challenge when you add in all different ways people describe skills, qualifications, and industries across languages and countries. That's why JANZZon is so important. It helps connect the dots. So when you say project management, or gestión de proyectos, or gestão de projetos, the system knows they all mean the same thing no matter where you are. Plus, it helps companies and job seekers find the right matches without getting lost in translation. Literally.
Why is that so important in practice?
It enables fairer, more accurate matching. Think of a platform connecting job seekers in Colombia and Portugal. If your system relies on simple translation or keywords, it will miss the deeper equivalences.
And this also impacts things like labor mobility, public employment services, and upskilling initiatives.
What's the most rewarding part of building the ontology in your language?
For me, it's knowing that I'm helping people to be seen and understood in their job search, not just based on buzzwords, but on what they actually do.
Same here. We are giving structure to something so human and complex. People's skills, career, hopes. That's powerful.
What do you wish more people understood about language and data?
In my opinion, shared roots don't mean shared semantics. And that's why ontology matters. Language is cultural, functional, and dynamic. Only humans with contextual understanding can curate it meaningfully. Ontology is essential for building AI solutions that work across borders, not just languages.
JANZZon understands job roles, skill levels, legal frameworks, and educational equivalences. It is human-curated and continuously maintained, unlike many open taxonomies or LLM-generated datasets.
And that's such an important point, because when taxonomies are just scrapped from the web or generated by large language models without human oversight, you often end up with a lot of noise. Titles get mistranslated, skills are lumped together incorrectly, and cultural or legal specifics get lost.
Exactly. And the machine might group enfermeiro parteiro, enfermeira parteira, a certified nurse midwife, and parteiro parteira, a midwife, because they are both in healthcare. But it won't necessarily know that in Portugal, an enfermeiro especialista, enfermeira especialista, has specific postgraduate training and a legally defined scope of practice.
That's exactly why large language models fail in these detailed areas.
True, Laura. To put it simply, an enfermeiro parteiro, enfermeira parteira, is a nurse with specialized training in midwifery, meaning they have complete nursing school plus a postgraduate qualification in obstetrics. On the other hand, a parteiro, parteira, is a midwife who might not have any nursing training. They have complete a midwifery-specific program focused purely on childbirth, and their practice is usually limited to low-risk pregnancies. They don't have the same broader healthcare background or medical interventions available to them.
Okay, so it is not just about healthcare, it is about different qualifications as well and responsibilities, which are key for things like recruitment and matching the right people to the right roles.
or to treat the same job title as equivalent across countries when, in reality, the role, responsibilities, and qualifications are completely different. That's why our work is so much more than simply translating word by word and term by term. It's contextual mapping.
So the real value of human curation is that it catches what AI or open static taxonomies can't: the evolving, locally grounded, and legally bound realities of work. Without that, you risk building systems that look accurate on paper but fail in practice.
That's right. And when you are matching people to jobs, almost right, isn't good enough.
And the only way to guarantee that similar languages don't create invisible walls in the global labor market is a purpose-built multilingual ontology.
And that's why the entire challenge we are in is a knowledge problem, not a computational problem. Therefore, it can only be solved with structured knowledge and highly specialized ontology. It is not just about matching words. It is about understanding the deep context behind those words. LLMs simply fail in such details. Susana and Sara, thank you very much for this fascinating conversation.
De nada, Laura, un placer.
De nada, o prazer é todo meu.
Today, we saw one, but a very relevant dimension to solve the problem. Language goes beyond words, into culture, context, and meaning. And that's exactly why products like JANZZon are so essential for building the labor market tools of the future. Behind it is an expert team of curators, specialized in fields ranging from law, architecture, and economics to teaching and medicine. A team that brings real knowledge and value to our always up-to-date ontology. So, Susana and Sara, thank you so much for being here today. Obrigada, gracias, thank you for listening, and goodbye.